The days are painted with the green of rice paddies and the gold of the tropical sun. For Rosa, a bright and ambitious college student, this tranquil setting was her entire world. Her life was a familiar rhythm of early morning classes, long hours studying, and evenings spent with her close-knit family. She was known for her infectious laughter and her dreams of a future far beyond the quiet borders of her hometown. Nothing about her suggested the darkness that was about to descend. She was ordinary, happy, and on the cusp of a promising life. But some shadows are cast by no visible object, and they can fall even under the brightest of suns. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. A forgotten conversation here, a moment of lost time there. Rosa would find herself in a room with no memory of how she got there. College is demanding, they'd say. You're just tired. But the episodes grew more frequent and more alarming. One afternoon, while helping her mother in the kitchen, a placid conversation about dinner turned into a terrifying ordeal. Rosa's eyes glazed over, and she began speaking in a language her family didn't recognize. Her voice a low guttural growl that seemed to emanate from deep within her chest. Just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. Rosa blinked, looking at her frightened mother with confusion, a placid smile returning to her face as if nothing had happened. The blackouts were no longer fleeting moments of confusion. They became gaping holes in her existence, hours at a time vanishing from her memory. During these episodes, her personality would warp into something unrecognizable. The gentle, studious young woman was replaced by a volatile and aggressive stranger. She would lash out, her strength seemingly multiplied, throwing furniture across the room with an ease that defied her slender frame. Her family, terrified and bewildered, rushed her to the local hospital. The doctors were baffled. They ran every test imaginable: EEGs, CT scans, blood work. The results all came back the same: normal. Physically, Rosa was the picture of health. Yet the violent and unpredictable episodes continued, growing in intensity right under the noses of the medical staff. She would stare at the ceiling for hours, muttering incoherently, then suddenly erupt into a violent rage, her voice shifting between a childlike whimper and a deep, masculine roar. The hospital became a second home, but it offered no sanctuary and no answers. Rosa was placed under constant observation. Nurses documented her every move, their notes painting a portrait of a mind in turmoil. They recorded instances where she would contort her body into unnatural positions, her joints seeming to bend at impossible angles. She developed an aversion to religious symbols, recoiling in terror at the sight of a rosary a nurse wore. The psychiatric evaluations were equally inconclusive. While the symptoms pointed towards a severe psychotic break, there was no underlying trauma, no history of mental illness in her family. Nothing to explain the sudden and extreme nature of her condition. The doctors were at a loss, caught between the clear evidence of their senses and the complete absence of any medical explanation. They were scientists, trained to believe in what they could measure and prove. But what was happening to Rosa defied all known science. Desperate and with their medical options exhausted, Rosa's devoutly Catholic family made a decision that felt like a step back in time. They turned to the church. They believed they were not fighting a disease of the mind, but a battle for their daughter's very soul. A local priest, experienced in matters of spiritual affliction, was contacted. He agreed to see Rosa, but with a condition: the medical team had to be present. He wanted them to witness what he believed to be a clear case of demonic possession. The doctors, skeptical but out of ideas, agreed. The clinical environment of the hospital was about to collide with the ancient rites of exorcism. The stage was set for a confrontation between modern medicine and age-old faith, with a young woman's life hanging in the balance. The first session was held in a private, sterilized room at the hospital. The air was thick with a strange mixture of antiseptic and incense. The priest, clad in his purple stole, began the rite of exorcism, his voice calm but firm as he recited the Latin prayers. The doctors observed from a corner, their faces etched with a mixture of professional curiosity and apprehension. At first, Rosa remained passive, her eyes vacant. But as the prayers intensified, a change began. A low growl rumbled in her throat. She began to curse the priest, her voice no longer her own, filled with a venom and hatred that was chilling to witness. She spoke of things she couldn't possibly know, secrets about the private lives of the people in the room. The sterile hospital room became a battleground. Rosa, or the entity within her, thrashed against her restraints with astonishing force, her body arching and her voice echoing with a chorus of tormented screams. Night after night, the ritual was repeated. Each session was more harrowing than the last. The entity inside Rosa seemed to revel in the psychological torment of those present. It would mock the priest's faith, laugh at the doctor's powerlessness, and whisper a constant stream of blasphemies. The room would inexplicably grow cold, and objects would sometimes move without being touched. The medical staff, armed with their charts and scientific instruments, could only watch and document phenomena that defied every law of physics and biology they had ever learned. They recorded her heart rate spiking to dangerous levels, yet she showed no signs of physical exhaustion. They saw her speaking in fluent Aramaic, a language she had never studied. Their skepticism was eroding, replaced by a growing sense of dread. They were no longer just observers. They were witnesses to a spiritual war being waged within the body of their patient. The final exorcism began like all the others. The priest's voice, now weary but unwavering, filled the dimly lit room. The doctors stood by, their faces grim. Rosa's body was rigid, her eyes wide with an unseeing terror. The entity had been resisting for weeks, its grip seemingly unbreakable. The priest raised his crucifix, pressing it against her forehead. A deafening scream tore through the room, a sound of pure agony and rage. The lights flickered violently. The temperature plummeted. The entity unleashed its full fury, a final, desperate assault. Rosa's body convulsed violently, her back arching off the bed at an impossible angle. The priest held firm, his voice rising above the chaos, commanding the spirit to depart in the name of God. For a long, terrifying moment, everything hung in the balance. The room was filled with an oppressive, malevolent energy that seemed to suffocate all hope. And then, silence. A profound, sudden stillness that was more shocking than the chaos that preceded it. Rosa's body went limp. The tension in the room dissipated, as if a storm had abruptly passed. She slumped back against the pillows, her chest rising and falling in a deep, even rhythm. A few moments later, her eyes fluttered open. She looked around the room, at the priest, at the exhausted doctors, at her tearful family. Her expression was one of pure confusion. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice clear, gentle, and unmistakably her own. What happened? She had no memory of the past few months. The blackouts, the violence, the guttural voices, the terrifying rituals, it was all a complete blank. The nightmare was over. In the days that followed, Rosa made a full recovery. Medically, she was perfect. Psychiatrically, she was stable. She returned to her life, picking up the pieces of her interrupted education and quietly rejoining her community. The official medical records list her case as an unresolved episode of acute psychosis with atypical features. For the doctors who witnessed it, the experience left an indelible mark, a permanent crack in their empirical worldview. For the priest and her family, it was a clear victory of faith over a palpable evil. But for the rest of the world, the story of Rosa remains a chilling and unanswered question. What truly happened in that hospital room in Quezon province? Was it a complex delusion born of a troubled mind, or was it a genuine encounter with a darkness that lies just beyond the veil of our understanding? The case is closed, but the mystery endures. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the unexplained. Stay curious and stay safe.